So it's time for another gardening week, and I'm just putting in my, what do you call them, late carrots or the early carrots, depending on whether you're talking about sowing or harvesting time. So basically it's late October, and what I like to do is a variety like Napoli or Mokum. All those are pretty good. I got mine from moles. I've already done a test sowing, so I know that the germination is pretty good. I'm actually just using compost that I dug up from one of the beds outside in these, and I've just put a little bit of seed compost just to create a nice fine seed bed here, and then I'll cover them again with seed compost again just to provide something nice and fine for them. And the idea here is that we are going to overwinter these carrots as really small little plants. We don't want them big, because if they're big, they're very likely to go to seed come next year. And I'm just putting them in very thinly, at not far off my desired planting density, so probably at twice as many, so like 2 seeds in each location. And I won't thin them out until probably February time, so when I'm reasonably sort of confident that they've survived winter. But I'm not over sowing in, at even higher ratio, because as I said, the germination was pretty good when I tried these out a couple of months ago, so I'm pretty confident they're still nice and viable. And I'm going to keep them in this polytunnel until April normally. And by April time, it's getting a bit hot in here for them. And also they're just more exposed to carrot fly. So I put them outside, up high on top of my IBC tanks. And carrot fly isn't totally unknown, even that high up, over 1 metre high. I still had it, but not very often and not too badly. So I'm at the point now where I'm prepared to take the risk, because I just can't be bothered with this early sowing of protecting them with fleece in containers. It's just too much fuss. And then in March, sort of early March, I'll sow my early main crops, and they'll take over from these sometime in early summer, hopefully. So these just fill the gap between my Eskimo carrots, which are outside and will stay outside, and I tend to sort of harvest the last of those in May, and that's just the sort of time that these are ready. I do like normally to use a pelleted seed, but I've not found a pelleted seed for any of these early varieties, so I just have to put up with these fiddly little seeds. And I can cope at this time of year. I haven't got very much else to do in the garden, so it's actually quite nice to have something to do. All the details of this and the planting densities and all of that sort of thing are in my ebook. And there's more videos of me doing the same sort of thing. I'm continuing to experiment with the dates. So traditionally I've always done them in early November and late October. Last year I just brought the date slightly earlier, and this year I'm just bringing it again just slightly earlier. We'll see. The risk is, the earlier you bring it, the bigger the risk that they'll go to seed, and I always do have a few go to seed, maybe 5-10%, something like that. It's not a huge loss. I've got more than enough carrots here to last me for a few months. And then, as I say, you cover them with a fine seed compost ideally, and then just pat them down gently just to make sure there's good contact between the seeds and the compost, and then just give them a water. You can cover them only with like a centimetre or even maybe less than a centimetre of compost at this time of year, because you're primarily, when you're covering them with more than that, you're primarily trying to make sure they don't dry out. There's not much chance of them drying out at this time of year, so yeah, just to save on the seed compost, I'm only giving them maybe 2/3 of a centimetre of 7 millimetres or something of compost, not obviously being that exact. So yeah, that's done. And they'll stay down here just for a couple of weeks, probably until they germinate, and then I shall move them up onto the trestle tables when there's space up there. There's still a danger of slugs eating these little seedlings, so I do put a few slug pellets on them just in case. Once they're kind of emerged and growing fairly strongly, then there's much less chance, but up on the trestle tables as well, there's a lot less chance. So that's done. So I'm still getting a bit of planting done. This was an old lettuce bed, the oldest bed we've got on the allotment right now, and so got that cleared, starting to go to seed, and to be honest we just didn't need that much lettuce. So what we do need is spinach for baby leaf harvest in spring, and so I popped these two trays in. One was Responder and the other one was Rubino, and yeah, and I planted them at a high density. I don't normally do that for something that's going to be harvested in spring, because the plants are going to grow big and vigorous and sort of overwhelm each other. But because this is for primarily for a baby leaf harvest, and I'll keep harvesting it hard, that's one of the reasons I've planted it high density. The second reason is that because of the timing and because of the weather forecast, I think actually I might get a bit of a harvest off it in winter, and that is always really welcome because we're always sort of relatively short of food in winter. So yeah, it's nice to sort of pack them in a little bit because of that. And the third reason is because almost certainly, although I don't generally plan at this level of detail, but I like to leave my options open, I will take out 4 of these plants and pop in Calabrese in late February, early March, and I'll keep on harvesting these until the Calabrese overwhelm them. But that will probably happen sort of towards the end of March, so they won't have the sort of vigorous part of spring, April and May, to grow, because I'll be taking them out. And then once the Calabrese finish towards the end of May, I'll pop into here some of my melons. So and then after the melons come out, I'll probably put lettuce back in again, and then once those lettuce come out, I'll probably put spinach back in again. So I get quite a few harvests out of each bed. Yeah, so I did put down, actually, because there's a lot going to grow in this bed, quite a decent amount of compost as well. I think I put in 2 buckets, and the buckets are about 30 litres, so maybe 60 litres of compost in each of the beds, and a little tiny sprinkling of hoof and horn, just to give them a bit of a early boost. Well, actually a nice slow boost is the wrong word, isn't it? A nice slow feed over their lifetime. So that's pretty much it for those spinach. And so just for comparison, I wanted to show you this bed. So this is the spinach that I put in last week, and I can't remember exactly how old this is. Let me just have a quick look. So this is about 33 days old. So the previous bed, the one I just planted, was about 2 weeks old. So this is nearly 5 weeks old, basically. And yeah, it's really grown on nicely. There's a few little issues which aren't worth bothering about, but yeah, generally speaking, I'm pretty happy with this. And it looks like maybe next week, maybe the week after, I'll be able to start taking some baby leaves off this bed, and that means I can start clearing some of my very early spinach which we're currently harvesting for baby leaves, and get that bed replanted. So I'm not exactly sure what's going to go in this bed next, but yeah, look forward to finding out. And at this point on the allotment, I'm kind of just looking for things to do because I just like to be here. There's not very much to do at this time of year, so I've just been tying in my summer fruiting raspberries, and this is their first year, so I didn't need to do any pruning of these. Eventually I'm going to put them all in loops, so as the canes grow nice and high, I kind of loop them over and take them back down, which I think is the nicest way to train them. And yeah, not much of that to do this year though. So I've got a bit of a problem with my composting area. All 4 bins are full, and so I've got nowhere to put all of my green waste. So what I'm going to have to do is start digging some of this out, take some of that next compost bin down, move it into here, and shuffle some stuff along basically to make some space in this bin so I can start filling it with greens. So I've just planted field beans and broad beans. I've just done 2 rows of broad beans initially, and I'll do additional successions of those as I go. And then the field beans, which are just a bit smaller than the broad beans, I put in this area here that I've just raked, so just on this side of the post. That little bed there I'll leave to grow to maturity, and that'll give us seed for next year and field beans to eat. I'll add 2 more rows of broad beans in there, probably one in November and then one sometime in sort of, you know, late February time. And then in this bed I put field beans again, all of them just about thumb depth, and so roughly 1.5 inches, something like that. And this bed will just be used and harvested for the field bean growing tips between February and roughly the sort of end of March. And at that point I will take this bed out and put potatoes in, probably early potatoes, and then after that this whole bed here will all be replanted with purple sprouting broccoli in July. And then these netted covers I just keep over here just because of all the huge quantity of leaves that falls on this bed at this time of year, and also it just has the added advantage of keeping the birds off and stopping them rummaging around. I don't think it'll keep the mice out. That's the biggest problem. Well, we got to the end of another week, and the greenhouse is actually coming on quite nicely in the back garden. I'll give you a quick photograph of that. And as a reward, we've given the greenhouse installer a little bit of a hamper, and we'll give him some other stuff off this table as well. So, what have we got? So we have celery, dried pears, apples, chard, Asian greens, they're komatsuma and red pak choi, just a few Brussels sprouts and colettes, calabrese, red cabbage, lots and lots of different brassica leaves. So we've got colette leaves, curly kale, more curly kale, carvalho nero, scarlet, perennial kale, and Brussels sprout leaves. So quite a nice selection there. We've got potatoes from the store, shallots, garlic and onions from the store, fennel, not from the store, mixed herbs, sweet peppers that have been gradually ripening. They're pretty much at the point where they need to be eaten or thrown away or frozen. More apples, celeriac, beetroot, more beetroot, leeks, more of their chili peppers. We've still got a few on the plants, but they're not great condition now, but they're okay still. Some people like them. And gorgeous carrots from our autumn bed. And we move on to the winter bed in 3 or 4 weeks' time. Salad rocket, salad onions, salad spinach, claytonia for the salads, and just more spinach and the salad bases. So I'm going to make up those salads now so you can just see the result. And that is it. My name's Steve. This is a Seaside Kitchen Garden and Allotment channel. And I'll see you soon. Oh, I forgot. We started on the mature winter squashes. So we've been eating these little ones. I mean, I suppose they're mature, but they're like really tiny so far. And now we're just kind of running out of those. I think they're the last two we've got. So we're on to the Crown Princes. And we've given those quite a bit of time to cure, and so they should be lasting us well into spring.